Ooh, guys, Biden kicked butt with this speech. Biden kicked butt. He seems to be embracing the fact that he does not have to just play sweet and nice with MAGA. He can come out and he can just go ahead and condemn their bad behavior. He did so amazing with the speech in Colorado. It just re-solidifies to me and to everybody with half a brain why you have no other choice but to vote Biden-Harris in 2024 if you want to save American democracy. If you want 2024 to look like people being slaughtered in the middle of the street, the economy being even worse, and American democracy leaving, no more presidential, democratic, elections, a dictatorship, then you vote for a third party, or you vote for Donald Trump, or you vote for Nikki Haley. But, if you want to keep American democracy, no matter what race you are, no matter what ethnicity you are, color, gender ideology, whatever your faith doctrine is, if you want to keep American democracy in 2024, I hate to break it to you, you got to vote for the sane ones. The ones who actually have some reverence for authority, the ones who actually have some respect for the U.S. Constitution, the ones who actually want to keep a live democracy going, the ones who are not bigoted, the ones who are not racist, the ones who are not just existing just to give tax breaks to a millionaire and billionaire class. But before I get into that, I did want to just take 1 minute to say, because I've been watching a lot of this news coverage. You guys know this channel is called It's the Real Najwa. You get my thoughts. You get my thoughts on everything. You get my thoughts on what's going on the news, what's going on in pop culture. Black Americans watch more TV than anybody else. That's a whole nother story for another day. But there's no reason why Black Americans should be in the economic situation that they're in. We should be at the table as much as anyone else, especially since we know about so many ins and outs of all of these political dealings. But again, that's another story for another day. But we watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of TV. I know a lot of pop culture. I talk about, what's going on with celebrities, what's going on with public figures, what's going on with politicians. I see it all. I just share my thoughts with you. But also, when I do turn off, because I also take those moments to just turn off and to get into my spirit, get into me and what I'm feeling, and then taking that out into the world and seeing what's going on in the world. You have to admit, any of you who are listening to this right now, whether you're Black, white, American, African American, European American, Latino American, Latinx American, Asian American, Jewish American, no matter who you are, you have to admit, since the Trump era, life has been significantly more, exponentially more difficult. It's been more difficult. The world has been more hateful. Okay, prices have been worse and the economy has been worse. If you really, really stop for a second, even the most extremist MAGA has to admit that, how do you say it? What's the expression? Like the pocketbook is tighter, the wallet, the pouch is tighter. I can't even think of the expression, but you know what I mean. You've had to make that penny stretch more than you did in 2010, than you did in 2000, than you did in 90. You know it. If you admit it, this does not work. Okay, Donald Trump has turned a bunch of people over with rhetoric, okay? And what my ancestors, specifically speaking about Black people, but what my ancestors, what my parents, when I was 15, my mom was born in Alabama. When she was 15, she got on a bus. Someone she lived alongside, an old fat white man, put his cane on her seat and said, "Get up, gal. Get up, gal," and they marched and they fought and they got sprayed with hoses. They got dogs sicked on them, okay, to get us the Voting Rights Act that we have today. And Republicans have done so much to distract us with culture wars that we've forgotten. That does not just apply to Black people. Okay, my history, my culture, it's a little bit different from everybody else, who is of a different race. Okay, maybe your background, your culture is a little different, but we got to admit that there is some inherent prejudice that's systemic in America, and it's due to slavery. Okay? And it's not something that's like, oh, America's always going to be good. We just have been pretending for, some time that like America's always going to be good. Democracy is always going to be there. No. We are the ones who work to make that happen. But before I get into what Biden said, and these words that I'm saying, I don't want this to seem like this is a message signaled out for just black people. Everybody. Okay, my husband's white. My best friend's white. I get it. I really do. My nephew is white. Okay, my nephew, his mom, well, he's mixed, and mixed. Gen Z, let me just go ahead and say this. Gen Z is a whole nother thing. Alpha generation is a whole nother thing because many of that generation is mixed race. Where are their place in this? I feel like this is a discussion for every single American. And I think MAGA has to realize if America does not work for black people, for brown people, biracial people, Hispanic people, transgender people, gay people, bisexual people, fat people, skinny people, disabled. If it doesn't work for everybody, it works for no one. Y'all still got time to turn this clown car around. Do not give up your life for Donald doggone Trump. Don't give up America's, don't give up our stance within the world stage, as someone who is a harbinger, a ringleader of carrying that torch of democracy. Other nations depend on us. Don't give that up, because when you do, your life will take it'll have an effect. You think that Donald Trump is going to make you more wealthy. It's not going to happen. You're going to become more poor. Okay. Like, I don't know any other way to put that. Pick up some books and you'll get to what I'm getting at. But, something behind there, if you are MAGA and you're listening to this, because I know that you guys roll on my page too. Most of the people who are like-minded like me, they already know what I'm talking about. They're there. Maybe they're not as active. Maybe they're not looking for organizations to volunteer with. Maybe they're not, protesting or spreading their word or putting stuff on social media or emailing their legislators or anything like that. But maybe they're already there and they're looking for ways to do their own thing and their own way to contribute to retaining American democracy. But I do know that there's MAGA people who roll onto my channel. I see your comments. I see your dislikes. Okay. I know that some things that I'm saying is touching some part of you. There's some humanity in there that's still left. You do not have to give up your life for this man. And if you want proof of that, the people, the 1,000-something odd people that have been already convicted for January 6th, most of them express some form of regret for following Donald Trump down this pointless path. I keep saying something before I get into what Biden said. As a millennial, as someone who grew up in the US, I live in Europe. I lived in Europe since 2016. Before I say this, I have to say this. There's two things that I just really want to emphasize to the world, to, the media. I have a feeling that sometimes media rolls onto my page as well. I won't tell you exactly why, but I think they're listening out for young people who are giving their opinions. Young people have really been exhausted in this whole situation, seeing baby boomers acting like doggone sadistic, powerful children who are ruining American democracy and ruining it for us who have to clean up this mess when y'all finally retire. Okay. So hear me, listen to me. Young people have to be at the table. The same way that black people need to be at the table, Latino people need to be at the table, Jewish people need to be at the table, LGBTQ need to be at the table, young people need to be at the table. And I don't know why this is not clicking for the establishment. I don't know why this is not clicking on both sides of the aisle, on the right, on the left. The one thing that I actually will give to the right is that they actually do allow young people to come into some forms of power within middle management, within Congress, within politics, within media. Look at Touchpoint USA. I'm not saying it's right. Actually, I find it abhorrent and I disagree with pretty much everything that they put out. But they actually do give Millennial and Gen Z voices a chance. Why should you give Gen Z and Millennial voices a chance, the Democratic Party? Those on the left? Because we're the ones who are gonna have to clean up this mess when y'all are gone. And that's not gonna be too far off. Okay, some of you guys are in your 60s and your 70s. Lord willing, that time when you're gone is gonna be 20, 30 years from now. Let's hope. But still, with that in mind, you're gonna retire in 10 years, okay? Some of y'all already retired. You're gonna retire in 5 years. And beyond that, the Gen Y, you guys are, I'm sorry, Gen X. I always get Gen Y and Gen X mixed up. Gen X, you guys haven't retired yet. But, I mean, you are working alongside people who they probably should have gotten help a long time ago. They probably should have released a little bit of their power a long time ago. And I mean, there is no conversation between old and young right now. Okay? Donald Trump, that Trump era brought a fragmentation across so many different areas, across the age gap, across the race gap, across the class gap. It has bridged us so far apart and pitted us against one another so much that we can't really see the trees through the forest. I guess that's basically what I'm trying to say. So I got 2 things that y'all need to hear before I reiterate and how this speech that Biden just gave in Colorado solidifies this all. I got 2 things to say to you from the perspective as a millennial, an American millennial, person of color, who's sitting here watching America blow up in torches with a bunch of old, I'm sorry, I love y'all, you're the generation of my parents, but old washed up people who probably should have just taken 15 seats a long time ago. Biden is a different issue, okay? He's the president of the United States. He's who was elected. We elected him, and we're gonna do it again because he is the key to save us from Donald Trump, to save us from American democracy just rolling over and croaking, okay? And a president can be old, he can be young, whatever, okay? That's really not the point. Have some ability to think in a nuanced way. And the people who talk about Biden's age, again, it's just stupidity. It's stupidity. It's idiotic. Okay, he's the person who's the most qualified for the job. Now, listen to me. Listen to me. 2 things, millennials. This is what we're upset about. Millennials and Gen Z. And maybe my counterparts, maybe my colleagues in their 20s, their 30s, maybe they can't really verbalize it this way. Maybe they're dealing with bouts of depression because society keeps pushing them away. They're unemployed. They're not where they're supposed to be in their career because a bunch of selfish Gen X and baby boomers are hogging up all the power and they're doing God knows what with it. We got 2 things that we want to say to you. Okay, I'm not trying to speak for all millennials and Gen Z, but hearing them here online in the small community that I'm building, hearing in real life from my real life friends and family who are a part of my same generation, and looking at the news, I can just tell you, I think I pretty much have a close grasp on what it is that we're frustrated about. Number 1, why has it taken so long for Donald Trump to be arrested? For him to be arrested, for him to receive the fines that he needs, the justice that he needs, the sentencing that he needs to get his behind on out of the way. Why is it taking the Justice Department so long to do what it needs to do about Donald Trump, to do what it needs to do about domestic terrorists who have risen up in the Trump era? Why is it taking so long to eradicate that hate? Other side of that. Why is it taking the media so long to stop acting like Donald Trump is a classic standard candidate for president. Like he's even a viable candidate for president. Why are they perpetuating this to 20% of America? I'm sorry, that are very, very low in IQ. I'm sorry, y'all. And I'm not trying to insult these people, but low in EQ, low in IQ, and unable to see that this man is leading them towards their detriment. They're dealing with the crab in the bucket scenario. They're dealing with the frog in the pot scenario, turning that heat up ever so slightly every minute or so, and then they just burn it up to death. They don't understand that Donald Trump is dragging them to hell with them. I'm sorry, but they are the sheep. They are that baby lamb. Yes, they're baby lambs with guns, okay? But they are so gullible and vulnerable. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. They're vulnerable in the fact that they don't realize that they actually are a victim of Donald Trump. They're a supporter and they're victims, and he's going to drag them down, and all of us with him. Why is it taking so long for the Justice Department to nip this in the bud, for a lack of better terms? But speaking simply here is the best way to go about this right now. That's what Millennials and Gen Z want to know. Why is it taking so long for you to nip this in the bud? Because as soon as you nip this in the bud, media and DOJ, less school shootings, okay? Less hate speech online, less statistics about Gen Z and Millennials taking their own lives because it's frigging horrible to live in these circumstances. Why is it taking you so long? I mean, this right here, to me, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be absolutely ashamed of yourself that this is what you will put upon the American system because white supremacy, and I don't mean white supremacy as people marching out in the streets, I mean the legacy of slavery. The legacy of slavery, that systems ran by white people, I'm sorry, but it's true, that it holds, okay? Black people, we deal with racial trauma because we were the colonized. But white people deal with racial trauma because y'all were the colonizers. That's why white guilt is a thing. That's why people don't want to talk about racism. White people carry just as much trauma from that time as black people do. And we're sort of in this trauma bond, stuck in this inferno together, when it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that way. Black people every day are constantly doing the spiritual work to elevate ourselves beyond that, to get past it, and to continue to advocate for ourselves. It's like they say, we would have none of the freedoms in America if it weren't for black people, because we know if we don't advocate for it, nobody else will. Now, of course, sometimes there's some helpful people, the Joe Bidens, you know, the liberal white people, the progressive white people, the woke white people that come along with us along the way sometimes to help us. The abolitionists, you know, the white SNCC volunteers. Sometimes we've got those brave people, but it's rare, and it should not be as rare. When the majority of white people accept that we're stuck in this horrible inferno together, and they stop being so complicit about it, something will be done. Number 2, Millennials and Gen Z want to know why we're not at the table. Are you that selfish that you're gonna hold up every single facet of our economy, our society? We worked so hard. We worked so hard during the Obama era to study and learn, to study abroad, to travel, to take those AP courses, to do our volunteer work, to be on this committee, to be on this debate team, you know, to play this sport, to get these scholarships, to be at the table. And we are not at the table, okay? We're living paycheck to paycheck. We are unemployed at rates higher than ever before with people in our ages before. We can't buy homes at the times that we're supposed to buy homes. We can't marry the people that we love at the time that we want to go ahead and make that commitment to marry the people that we love, because the economy keeps dismissing millennial and Gen Z people out of the room. We're facing hate crimes across many different borders, across sexual orientation borders, race borders, ideology borders, religion borders. We're getting slaughtered in the middle of the streets. Social media is propping up hate speech and domestic violence to service a handful of billionaires. And this cesspool of hate that's just bubbling up on these social media platforms are causing Gen Z and millennial people to unalive themselves. To unalive themselves at ridiculous rates. And for what? Those are the two things that millennial and Gen Z people want you to know. Why the heck is it taking the Justice Department and the media so long to nip the Trump situation in the bud? And two, why aren't we at the table? Come off your friggin' high horse about this crap that we're arrogant, that we're lazy. That's just an excuse for baby boomers and Gen X to not share the power. And it's going to be the detriment of all of us. You know, you want to impart some of your wisdom upon us? Great. Impart the wisdom and then bring us into it. You want to maintain your seat of power until you retire? Great. Give us that deputy seat of power until you go. Because at some point you are going to have to go. And we're going to need to be at the table. We're going to need to know what to do. But beyond that, just because you're older doesn't mean that you have all the answers. Older individuals do not know everything. They have some things that they need younger people's help with. They do. But the arrogance there is no ability to admit it. So two things. For those of you decision makers who are out there listening to random channels like this, because I know you do, I look at my analytics. Millennials and Gen Z want two things. Bring us to the table. Nip Trump in the bud. Okay, with that being said, guys, Biden, he friggin' just, I love this man so much. And as someone who volunteered for Obama, you know, I really don't understand why people don't give Biden the credit that he is due. I mean, I understand it. It's because Trump is constantly a machine cranking out insanity every day, claiming that everything is election interference and driving people to be, you know, belligerent, law-breaking citizens, you know, like, violent. I don't understand it. Today, Biden pretty much called that out. Like, usually he really tries to take an understated stance, but he really called it out today. He basically said, hey, the Biden-Harris administration is actually putting money into businesses, into making sure that businesses are happening back on U.S. soil. Even businesses that exist overseas, that they're dealing with American business. That they're putting money back into the economy through solar power, okay? Through the meat industry and manufacturing. That they're actually trying to preserve America's, water and land, you know, by investing properly, but also by really taking initiatives that take some consideration for the environment. I feel like over the past 30 years, corporations have just gone crazy. They've seen that they can just do so much and get so much money, you know, that they could just get so much money, but they have not taken one thought about what it does to the environment and the long-term implications. What is your money gonna matter when the world has become a mutant tin? You know, like, you know, in those cartoons where you literally see one of those tins that with green mutant goo and crap, you know, like, when the world becomes that, like, what does your money matter? Okay, but beyond that, he talks about how he's put money into, you know, the having more jobs in the U.S. You know, unemployment is down. It needs to keep going more down, like, again, when Trump was in office, it should not surprise you that the unemployment is up when an administration is essentially a boys' club where only white older men and people of color, women who are willing to shuck and jive, are the ones who are let into the club and everybody else is let go. That doesn't really say progressive to me. It doesn't really say a democracy to me. It doesn't say that the economy is going to be doing great. It doesn't say that jobs are going to be created, etc. You get my point. And even recently, Trump tried to take, I see online all the time in these forums, in these comments where people talk about how, gas was so much cheaper when Trump was president. I love when milk and eggs were so much cheaper when Trump was president. Okay, first of all, that sounds like it's coming from someone absolutely illiterate. Pick up those books, guys. I believe in you. I'm, again, not saying this in a condescending way. I believe in you. Go pick up some books. But beyond that, like, Trump talking about how gas was more, like, the cheapest it had ever been, or, within this period of time that he's talking about when he was president, it was actually COVID-19 that pushed the gas to be that cheap. But nobody is fact checking this stuff because he cranks out this insanity every second of every day. Biden talks about the fact that, like, the economy can swing back when you believe in American people. You can even see it from the facet, I'm sorry, I'm about to speak in French. From the facet in which he speaks about American people, where he humanizes American people. Donald Trump has been doing a huge sort of effort of dehumanizing people, so that when his crazy followers go and enact violence or hate speech or whatever it is towards them, it's totally normalized. You look at that sort of split screen between Trump and Biden, you see this speech from Joe Biden in Colorado just recently, and you see Trump's crazy fake Twitter post rants at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's very, very clear to you that you're looking at the difference between someone who is very qualified versus someone who is deeply, deeply disturbed and who should be nowhere near the nuclear codes for America. Nowhere near them. But beyond that, the most important thing and I'm going to wrap up with this, the most important thing that I saw from Biden's speech, and again, wait, before I even say that, to go back to how Biden behaves like an adult, he actually has empathy. He actually just touched the shoulder of one of the workers that was right next to them. And I know that was a small piece of this, but it just shows that he actually has empathy. He's not just sitting there robotically screaming rants at people and putting out all these dog whistles for his most extreme followers of his base to go and do insane things and him to walk away scot-free. Like, there's love there, there's empathy there, there's care about what the heck is going on where black people are being slaughtered in the middle of the streets, where LGBTQ people are being slaughtered in the middle of the streets, where corporations are destroying the planet, where the economy is suffering because people who actually don't really know anything about the economy are making the decisions. He talks about Obamacare. He talks about how many people are actually insured by Obamacare. What he doesn't mention is how many white people are actually insured by Obamacare. He takes the stance of Latino and black voters who are insured by Obamacare. And I know he did that for a particular reason, because some people have been disgruntled about Biden. Black people, Biden is your best bet to not be slaughtered in the middle of the streets. I don't know any other way to put that. It's like the vote for democracy versus the vote for you being slaughtered in the middle of the streets. So y'all stop with the silliness, okay? Biden is your best bet. No president is gonna be perfect. I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, to wrap up, the last thing that I thought was so amazing about this was Biden calling out the elephant in the room. Congress, people like Lauren Boebert, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like Donald Trump, people like Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson, and this were not his exact words, but in so many words, he basically makes it clear that these people have been agents of chaos, and Congress, which is supposed to be there to help get those Social Security checks for our retired and disabled moms and dads and grandmas, who we don't want to see starving out in the middle of the street. They're there to make sure that they get their Social Security checks. They're there to make sure that education is affordable. They're there to make sure that people can call up to the IRS if they have a problem. They're there to make sure that people have affordable child care. They're there to make sure that people can have health care. That if people have, if their kids need to go to the dentist, that their kid can go to the dentist. They're there to make sure that we're not susceptible to foreign attack, that our militaries are strong. That's why the people in Congress are there. They're not there to give tax breaks and make sure that they never have to pay taxes for billionaires. And Biden calls this out, He even at one point asked, the total of, there were 750 billionaires before COVID. I think he said before COVID. And he said after there's 1,000 of them, okay? Not to mention, just over the decades, of course there's more and more billionaires. But within this past 30, 40 years with the technology boom, oh yeah, it's like evil villains from a movie. They've just been running away with their money bags, dollars, falling out, Hitler-esque, whatever it is. But he actually says, that combination of those 1,000-odd billionaires pay 8% of their taxes. He goes, raise your hand if you've had to pay 8% in taxes. Now me, I know darn well that I have not had to pay 8% in tax. I've paid well over that, I remember literally looking at when I first started working in advertising, and I was working at very high profile advertising agencies in San Francisco. And, I grew up in Atlanta and San Francisco. The wage is higher. The wages are higher, and just to wrap up here, just paint this landscape for you. The wages are higher, the cost of living is higher, but you're gonna make more money. And so when I got there, I was, oh my God, I was making so much money, and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. But then I would go and look at my pay stubs and Social Security, healthcare coming out here. And it was like, well above 8%. Let's just say that. Let's just say I have and I continue to pay well above 8% of taxes, and sometimes it's just like I walk away thinking, how the heck did I work this hard and this is my take home? How the heck? And I know that many of you out there, you resonate with that, whether you're 32 years old like me, or whether you're 24 years old, a little bit younger than me, or whether you're 50 or 60. The billionaire and millionaire class. Is America just running for billionaires and millionaires? That should not be how it is, and it's not their place to sit here and drive culture war after culture war and have people pitted against each other on ideology, on gender, on race, on religion, on sex, as a big old distraction while they're running away with their money bags, okay? And Biden illustrated that beautifully, if I must say. So yeah. That's why you need to vote Biden-Harris in 2024 if you want to save American democracy, if you don't want to be have people slaughtered in the middle of the streets and billionaires running away with their bags of money, and maybe, just maybe, a few dollar bills, maybe a couple of Benjamins will slip out for you and you can take them and you can stand all on your hate speech and everything. If you don't want that, if you don't want your friends and your family and your children and your grandchildren being slaughtered out in the middle of the street, if you don't want America to turn into 1941 Germany, okay, if you don't want the orange Hitler to come into power, if you want us to get back onto track where things were just not so depressing and stressful and hateful and violent. Just the fact of going outside your home and not feeling like, oh my God, is this going to be the day that I don't come back to my sweet baby, to my children, to my pumpkin? Yeah, life doesn't have to be that way. I think Biden illustrated that pretty well, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, and if you are new here, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, hit that bell so you know whenever I post a video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.